I empowered a lot of individual contributors to make decisions. And I hired individual contributors and I gave them budget to go hire people to help them. So it was really like virtual assistants or now it would be like you leveraging AI, but it was really like hiring freelancers to help do a lot of like the manual work or, the stuff that took them a lot of the time so that they could be, do more with less.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today, we're going to talk about empowering your team. If you really want to scale your company, you want to actually have more freedom and really enjoy being a leader of a growing company, then you've got to empower your team the right way. Today, we dive into that with our special guest, Sujan Patel. He's with Ramp Ventures. He's been on the podcast before, and I wouldn't say he's a close friend of mine, but I really have admired him for about a decade. He was an employee with a SaaS company. He was writing for a lot of publications. He was speaking all over the place. And I'm like, what is this employee doing? And, really being the brand ambassador for the company the way he was, it was pretty impressive. And now, fast forward a decade, he's operating Ramp Ventures. He is talking to us about empowering your team, things he's learned sort of the hard way, the journey he's had to be able to work 15 hours a week, managing 70 employees and 4 operating businesses. It's pretty impressive. And so hopefully you can learn a lot today too. My name is Gene Hammett. I'm an executive coach. We do leadership development for growing companies. We also help their leadership teams that are a little bit out of alignment, and sometimes a lot out of alignment. Let's be honest. Those are the things that we really help growing companies do. I'm known as the growth guy because I work with a lot of Inc. 5,000 level companies. Many of my clients have been on the list 3, 4, 5 times because we help them manage the chaos of growth. If we can help you, we'd love for you to reach out to us. Just go to genehammett.com. And we've got some free tools over there. If you want to grow and scale your business, you just have to look around for a little bit. And if you are curious about kind of what we are and you don't want to schedule a call with me, I get it. We do virtual conversations. And so if you go to coreelevation.com, you can find the virtual conversations. The next one coming up is really going to help you grow your business. Just go in there and see what the topic is, because every month it changes. We invite previous guests that have been on the show before, clients. We invite people that are like you that are listening in here. If you really are an executive of a fast growth company and this topic resonates with you, sign up. We'd love to have you join us. Now, back to the interview with Sujan. Hey, Sujan, how are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Well, you've been on the show before and I'm glad to have you back.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back. I think this was like 10 years ago. Life was very different than when we first talked.
For me too. We've been around about 10 and a half years. Maybe that tracks. I was probably struggling to find people to do it. I know you were writing for different publications, and I was just impressed with you because I didn't know that you had exited, but you were a key employee, but you were an employee, and I was like, this guy's shouldn't be an employee, but
It didn't last long. It didn't
didn't
last
last
long.
long.
Yeah, that's how I got here, right? It's I exited my business. Wasn't good. It wasn't great. It was like good enough to kind of screw around for 5 years if I needed to. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm gonna go like learn about how to operate a SaaS business. I've been on the other side of it, like marketing and like kind of an outside. And I was like, I need to get hands on. Like, there's stuff I don't know, and like if I just inside of a company, I'll figure it out quickly. I was like, it's gonna take 5 years. It took me 6 months, and I started Mailshake, and then I think we've done like 11 companies now. Most of them acquired, some of them we built, but and I currently operate 4. But it's like this, just like series of things, and then like I look back and I'm like, okay, that was pretty fast, and now my life is like pretty mellow, even though I've got all these things going on.
Now you're operating Ramp Ventures right now. Put a frame around what that is, and then we'll kind of let the conversation flow from there.
Yeah, so Ramp Ventures essentially is a holding company, and we manage a portfolio of SaaS businesses all around B2B SaaS. And we're in HR tech as well as sales tech. Kind of those are like the 2 verticals we play in. Currently have 4 operating companies. Each one kind of has a team from like 12 people to 15. Our largest one, Mailshake, is somewhere in the like 40 employees range. All doing somewhere, from like 7 figures to 8 figures in revenue.
I am a customer of Mailshake. It's an incredible platform. I appreciate you introducing that to me, and how we, one of the ways we actually connect with people that we bring on the show. So it's an important tool to the success of our business.
Awesome. Glad you can utilize it. And yeah, I mean, Mailshake is like, I built this thing back in 2015 when I just had an itch. I was at this SaaS company. My sales team was just like, no, classic sales team sales thing, right? Like you focus on the newest leads and you have all this revenue and like leads that you talk to and people like that are like, maybe they will buy, but there's just like a pool of people and that pool gets bigger, but everyone keeps focusing on the new pool, new people coming through the door. And all I did was like, hey, let me automate, let me get some messaging around to these people who we've already talked to. And it was like, boom, it just started making money. And I did this manually. And I was like, well, oh crap, I can't do this manually. So that's kind of how Mailshake was born.
Well, let's step back a little bit, because running 4 companies is probably blowing the minds of anyone listening in here, because it's a struggle to run one company. And I run one company. I mean, my wife has our real estate portfolio, so I guess there is a second company inside the house.
Yeah.
But she runs that. Like I'm not really, I'm very passively involved in there. When you're running 4 companies, what does it look like on a day-to-day now?
So it's really crazy. So, if you told me that like I'd be spending this little time running 4 companies, it'd be like, you're crazy. I spend somewhere between 15 hours, give or take a couple hours a week across all 4 companies, not each company total. Um, and so effectively I've got really good. So starts from empowering people. Well, actually starts from get the heck out of the way, right? So first 3 4 years I was like I would call myself the superhero, and the like everything was kind of built around my capabilities. And when we're buying companies, taking over, we're like putting millions of dollars to work. Like we spent a bunch of money. Like this has to work. I'm gonna do everything I can to make it work. And naturally, it just I couldn't scale, and so I realized quickly that actually wasn't so quickly. It took me 2.5 years, but I realized eventually, actually, so that I need to build a team around me that's not just like working through like with what I can do. Actually, is to scale what I can do and do a better job at it. And in the beginning, I couldn't afford these folks. Over time, I was like, I could, as I got one or two, and I realized when I hired like an awesome VP of sales or an amazing product person, or a head of sales, a head of marketing, content creators, but just effectively like various people doing various parts of the role. I was a jack of all trades, and sure, I could like spend 18 hours and get something done, but the machine was just working way better than I could do it. And so I in 2018, 2019, we kind of took a step back from buying companies. Okay, we need to build a framework, or at least like start to really think about how we're going to operate these things. Not just because we were buying, I think we bought like 6 or 7 companies within the course of 18 to 24 months. And it's just like absorb and then make sure there's no fires, right? That was kind of the strategy, is like absorb, get the growth path, and then make sure the thing is running. And now we're slower, we're way more picky on what we buy and what we operate. But effectively, I got out of the way. Step one. Step two is I empowered a lot of individual contributors to make decisions. And I hired individual contributors and I gave them budget to go hire people to help them. So it was really like virtual assistants, or now it would be like you leveraging AI, but it was really like hiring freelancers to help do a lot of like the manual work, or the stuff that took them a lot of the time, so that they could be do more with less. And then I was able to hire good managers. Eventually, we could afford good managers, or managers in general. Like a manager being like a marketing manager or a sales manager, and we taught them about. We use the system EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System, and so I got access to all these metrics and things every day, every week. So to me, I want to know if the business is performing great. If it's not, what's going on? And I know that daily, weekly, monthly. And so when I start to see not great, I can jump in, and I jump in with the manager or the leader. But long story short, with those types of visibility, I was able to get out of the manager's way, and I kind of empower them, train them of how I think. I use Dan Martell's 3-2-3-1 what is it? 1-3-1.
Yeah.
So it's one problem, three, the manager, the leader has to come up with the three possible outcomes that they would like to go after. Like, what's the solutions? What are three ways to solve this problem? And then they recommend what they would do. And like 10 times around that block with that approach, the manager and I were thinking about the same problem the same way. Good. It's a bad thing too if you kind of, you don't want critical thinking and then, but they understood how I make decisions. And then eventually I hired director, like VP level folks, like a VP of sales, VP of engineering, VP of product. And and that's kind of when I went from like in the business to on the business. And I've maintained really on the business. Now, I'm not just twiddling my thumbs the hours I don't spend in the business. I am focusing on what new businesses to buy. I'm looking at what are we not seeing. I've also started doing a lot more investing, and so I've kind of got this like I got Ramp Ventures, I got my investment angel investment, and kind of I don't know, maybe I have like 50, 60 investments and stuff like that, and just playing around with other things. But yeah, now I'm just kind of looking at this from a portfolio perspective.
Now, Sujan's just been talking about empowerment. He mentioned Dan Martell's 1-3-1 framework. I've modified this a little bit because I wanted to get a little bit sharper with the first part of that. So I call this the 3-3-1 framework, not to take any away from Dan's, but the 3-3-1 for me is three questions that allow you to really agree on what the problem is. So the first question is, what is the problem? The second one is, what is causing the problem? And the third question is, what is the impact across the organization? Because you don't want to just know the problem. You want to know a little few more information around it. So people should come to you knowing what those questions are and knowing what the answers are. Now, the next three in the 3-3-1 is three options. What are the three options available to you? What it could be more than three, but you want to pull this out of them. And over time, you'll be able to get them to have the confidence to say, if I was going to make the decision, or if you were going to make the decision, what would it be? And so that's the one. What's the one decision? So 3-3-1, three questions, three options, and one decision. Now, your job is to empower people the right way, which means don't tell them what to do next. Empower them. Let them think about the options. Let them think about this, and you can coach them to the right answer. You can support them. You can just give a thumbs up and say, no, that's great. Run with it. And that will build their confidence too. Just a little detail on empowering the right way. Back to Sujan. Well, that's a pretty good understanding of where you are now. When you were building this team, what are some of the challenges you had to overcome to get to this place?
Well, first and foremost, it's can't afford to hire everything. You can't afford to fix all your problems all at once. And I was like, okay, well, I need a marketing person. I'm doing marketing, product, sales, and customer success. And what I realized was like, okay, I need to solve all four problems, but I cannot afford to solve all four problems right now. So I literally, and the simplest thing was like, what's the highest leverage? What am I the best at? And then what is taking me the most time? Simplest thing, what's taking the most time is customer success, customer support. Like if I'm overseeing that, I'm just in the weeds on the nitty gritty. And it also makes me worse at product because I'm like too close to it. So was able to hire someone there. That was where I started because it was also the cheapest kind of management role. And then the highest leverage was for sales. So like I was managing the sales team, but I don't have a traditional sales background. I know sales from just like I ran a business and I did sales and I had a couple salespeople and like I closed millions of dollars in deals, but like I'm not a VP of sales that has done this formally of any real training. I just kind of winged it and worked my way around it. So yeah, when I hired it was actually a director of sales at the time. All of a sudden that person was able to take what was working. We had like a process and put gasoline on it because they just were like, okay, well, you're doing this, you're missing this element, you need to do this, that, the other. And it was almost like you like just like, oh, like here's like three things to do and it will instantly make you more money. And like two of them did. So it unlocked a lot more growth, which actually then let me afford the other roles I needed to hire. And then I did that.
Sujan, I'm curious because now that you're at the 15-hour week, 70 employees, 4 different operating companies, what is your management or leadership philosophy that guides you today?
I want my team to be making decisions without me. I want them to understand, like I want them to think in the back of their head, like what would Sujan do or how would we solve this problem? But if they've got to ask me about a question of how I should do something, it's gonna be at least a $10,000 or greater problem. And really, I there's a philosophy like 10K work. So I only if I'm in so if one, I don't do any work as an individual contributor outside of I run a podcast for sales folks and I do all the interviewing, but that's 1 day a month and I don't do anything before or after. And I work hard on that day. It's like 12-hour day because I'm like back to back, but that's it. I've got pre and post production, all the editing, all that stuff happening. But yeah, I want my leaders to keep, we set the North Star, we set the goal for the year. We've got quarterly rocks and initiatives we need to get done and why. They're marching towards that. And along the way, if they find that the thing that they're working on deviates from that, we kind of check in. So I check in with my managers when they first year or two when they're with us every week. We have a one-on-one. We do monthly department meetings with everyone, all the heads of every department. We use the EOS framework, so it's like an L10 meeting.
Yeah.
So like the simple way to look at it is like starts with metrics. Like what are the metrics of the business? Everyone has the same dashboard. Everyone contributes to it. I look at that weekly. We talk about it monthly. And what are the big things that are coming up that like maybe it's not a metric and it's like identify, discuss, solve. Like maybe that's the S there, but simply put, that that solves most of the things. And if somebody asks me the same thing twice, I usually tell them, or like same genre of things. So like I'm like worried about my, if it's a salesperson, they're like, oh, like, we're gonna miss our numbers this month. And we're having this, that, the other issue. I'm like, we're gonna jump on way earlier than me waiting for it to go bad. But because I have that, because I have the window and the check-ins, so my 15 hours are effectively one-on-ones, team meetings, and a couple individual core projects that are like critical to something we're doing. Most of the time that's in product development. And that's just because I'm closest to the customer from my vantage point, and I probably shouldn't be doing that either.
Now, we've been talking about executive leadership team, and I work a lot in the area of executive leadership team alignment. One of the things we have to do is we have to meet fairly regularly. I think weekly is the right rhythm. I think monthly, from what I've seen, does not allow for us to really stay as connected in alignment the way we want to. But you can have a weekly meeting that can be sharp and focused. It could be 30 minutes, it could be 45, it could be an hour, it could be a little bit longer if you need it, if you're covering a lot of different things. But you want to make sure that you're meeting consistently, people are showing up prepared for that. And you want to have a framework for it. It's not just having a good conversation. The EOS level 10 meeting is one of the most popular elements of the whole EOS framework. And so you can model your framework off that, you can modify that, but have a framework that you will use for 3 months or 4 months, and then have a little bit of a conversation. How do we improve our framework? What are we missing? What do we cut? And innovate on that, pull some from other areas and really make it personalized to you. That's my suggestion. That's what I suggest for people to do, is to take a framework and run with it for a while and then modify it and then continue to do that over the course of every quarter or half a year and really just keep getting better at having meetings with each other. Back to Sujan. You mentioned that you're spending some one-on-one time, and I'd like to spend the rest of our time is how are you spending that time? Is it structured? Is it unstructured? If you're trying to develop a manager to have more confidence in themselves and then really drive their own teams to the next level, how are you doing that in those one-on-one meetings?
I have a structure. And it's similar to like the IDS thing, is just bring up things as they throughout the week. I have detail, like random stuff comes up. I have this question here, there, the other. I just encourage them to Slack me. So I try to do asynchronous communication across the board. Simple stuff like my computer broke. To I have this big deal. I'm in sales. I don't know. There's a blocker here. And this is the blocker, right? To this person is gonna quit, or we need to hire more people. Some of those, your laptop broke, talk to blah, right? First time that's asked, we document and process it. I have a VA that also has access to my Slack. And anytime there's like a simple question, it's going into Notion and we have a documentation of like, okay, laptop broken, And now I just link to the file, and now it's like they, after a couple of times of pointing them to Notion, they figure it out. Now, like my key employee is going to quit, or like, I have this deal that I have a blocker and it's another department. If it's urgent, we're going to go solve it now. It's like, hey, have you talked? You should just go head on here and post here. Other times it's like, okay, let's talk about this on our weekly one-on-one. And we have, like, right now we're in the middle of launching two new like brand new companies. And so my customer success and I, head of customer success and I, we moved our meetings one-on-ones to monthly, because it's pretty much like standard stuff. Go ahead. Now we're launching a bunch of stuff, so it's not standard. We moved it back down to weekly, and it's like there's a gazillion things we need to do. But the point is, this 15 to 30-minute check-in is literally just the highest things that we couldn't get out of the way, and everything else is done asynchronously through Slack. And here's my a management tactic that I learned back in 2017. So I did a bunch of public speaking, and like I think like in a 2.5 month period, I did like 20 speaking engagements around the world, and I just wasn't available, like from a time zone, and like I'm on a flight or sleeping or whatever. And my team was like, it pinged me for all these stuff, but I just wasn't responding. And every single question was like 30 minutes later or an hour later, never mind, I figured it out. And so most of my response is like, what do you think we should do? What do you think we should do? That sounds great. And now, like, literally, I don't even say that sounds great. It's just like thumbs up emoji, and they kind of figure it out. And yeah, I mean, I'd like to say like that's like, it's that simple. But honestly, if you put the process in place, which is painful to do, to be the one that's not making the decisions, I mean, to be the one making decisions, to like empowering your team to make decisions on their own, and the fact that they'll disagree with you, and that's okay, it's kind of like the hardest part. And then after that, it's once you see the like, you feel the trust, it's like pretty straightforward.
Sujan, we're running out of time here, but you mentioned something, and I just kind of want to tune into this because I think you're on the cutting edge. I could be wrong, but AI is touching a lot of our businesses in different ways. We're looking at things. I went to a workshop this week actually, to look at external uses of AI, and then also looked at internal uses of AI. And they actually mentioned Notion. I'm just kind of curious, if you had just a couple of minutes left of this, how are you leveraging AI as your company scales?
Great question. Yesterday we had like an all hands, and we just shared how we all use AI individually, and lots and lots and lots of use of Claude, Chat GPT, Gemini. Everyone kind of has their own flavor to summarize videos, to write emails, to do research. So like my sales team uses it to, like, before they jump on a call, tell me everything you can about this company, or who are their customers, describe their customers that you can find on LinkedIn and their website, stuff like that, to help them with augmented basic research that's on the web, right? You just take something that takes 5 minutes to take 30 seconds, just time saver. I use it to help. So I'm a very, very direct person. And it's like, I need polish. My business partners, I was like, let me rewrite this for you. It needs to be nicer, and then you also probably need to say like what you appreciate about this person and then what they've done, not just like, hey, I really need you to do this like yesterday. That would be my direct way if you talk to me, but the nicer way would be whatever. So I use Chat GPT to say like, hey, how do I soften this up? How do I, like rewrite this in a softer way or a nicer way, with, in a more appreciative way. And honestly, I did that like 10, 20 times, and I started to write better from that experience. So a lot of that, we use for our sales team, really, really powerful. We use Avoma right now, but I'm actually working on building a sales coaching software called Maximus. That's one of the products we're launching here soon. And effectively, it just joins your Zoom calls, and it just gives you advice on what you could do better based off listening to the call. That right there, and I have my sales, and the premise is it emails you after the call. It emails a sales rep, and it emails your manager what they should do better. And as a manager, my manager just checks in and says, hey, like, so it says you have a technical, you're not good at like the closing statement. What are you doing to work on this? So stuff like that is how we leverage AI.
Sujan, thanks for being here, talking about your role now as you've ramped up and scaled up and getting to the point where you're still involved with the business, but you don't have to be there every day. And 15 hours a week, I think is probably ringing. They would love to get to that point. So thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Appreciate it. And I'm glad to hopefully somebody comes back to you and says, I've shaved off a bunch of hours from this podcast or this video.
That would be fantastic. And I'll let you know if they do.
Love it.
Wow, what a great interview. I love he talked about empowering your team and all the details he put in that. There's definitely something to this. If you want to scale your company, if you want to be a better leader, you can't hold on to everything. You have to be able to let go. You have to be able to empower people the right way, hold them accountable, and have structures for that. And when you do that, everything starts to work. Now, you have to keep your fingers on the pulse of things. You can't just back away forever. But if you do this consistently and people are rising up and they're elevating, then they too will hire people and do the same thing. If you give them the same kind of tools and you support them into doing that. And that's what Sujan's done to be able to get to the place where he's only working 15 hours a week. It's very, very impressive. And hopefully you got a lot out of today's interview with Sujan. My name is Gene Hammett. I'm here to help you grow your business. I'm known as the growth guy because I help companies that are growing continue predictable growth by putting leadership at all levels of the company. If you want to talk to me, I'd love to chat with you. Just go to gene@genehammett.com. That's my email address. And remember, if you think about growth and you think about leadership, think about Growth Think Tank. As always, with courage, we'll see you next time.